Most men spend more time researching a car than vetting the woman they plan to marry. You'll check the mileage, history, and engine of a car you'll own for 5 years. But when it comes to the woman who will raise your kids, influence your finances, and affect your mental peace, most men just trust the chemistry and hope for the best. This lack of awareness destroys more men than anything else. Choose the wrong woman and you lose years of your life and half of your wealth. But if you make the right decision, you gain a massive advantage in every area of your life, including, of course, your relationship. I can tell you from personal experience as a guy who was once fat, socially awkward, and practically with zero optionality in dating. I fell in every possible trap when it comes to entertaining the wrong woman that you could possibly think of. And believe me when I say this, there is nothing more destructive to a man than being with the wrong woman, because she will drain you mentally and leave you no vitality to focus on what actually matters. Now, the common belief, the one Hollywood and society feeds us, is that love just conquers all, and you're told that if the attraction is high enough and you work hard enough, you can make it work with practically anyone. But that is actually a lie, because in fact it is a dangerous blueprint for misery. Love does not conquer incompatible values, it doesn't fix a lack of feminine cooperation, and love definitely doesn't override a track record of instability. In this video we're going to break down 4 key pillars for vetting women, so that you don't end up in a toxic dynamic or trap the same way I did in the past. By the end of this video you will have a clear filter to separate the women who are recreational distractions from the women who actually have long-term potential. Let's start with the dynamic that actually makes a relationship work day to day. You need to understand a man's leadership and a woman's cooperation. The man should be the anchor, the backbone that preserves the integrity of the relationship when emotions hit a ceiling, as well as the director that ensures things are moving in the right direction. The woman, on the other hand, is by his side at all times, because she doesn't only follow his lead and cooperate, of course, she inspires him to do better, keeps him accountable on his vision, and also creates just enough motivation for him to push his limits every single day. If you are a man with drive and ambition, you cannot be with a woman who views your leadership as a threat. You need a woman who thrives under your energy, not one who directly competes with it. There is a distinct difference between a cooperative dynamic and a dysfunctional one. A strong dynamic should feel like a dance. You lead the movement, she receives and engages, and you can move harmoniously. A competitive dynamic feels like you're opposing each other in a tug of war. If she cannot relax into herself, if she cannot relinquish her independence to trust your lead, you will spend your entire relationship fighting for dominance rather than building a life together. If you find yourself constantly justifying your decisions or fighting for respect, stop looking at her potential and start looking at the reality of the situation. She's basically fighting the wheel, and a ship with 2 captains fighting over who is going to control the ship is always going to crash. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I need her to follow my lead, but here's the catch: she won't just follow your lead blindly. You must understand this next point. This is the hidden requirement most men actually miss. We talk a lot about men and their needs, like respect and loyalty. But to get that, you must provide the one thing that a high-value woman craves more than money, and it's called emotional safety. Think of a woman's ability to be feminine and soft, like a garden. If that garden is exposed to harsh winds, storms, and predators, the flower closes up and grows thorns. It becomes basically defensive because she feels vulnerable. Many men demand submission and softness from a woman while acting erratic, emotional, and inconsistent. You cannot demand trust. You have to build the fortress where trust can exist. Does that make sense? Emotional safety is the feeling she gets when she knows you are on solid ground. If you are volatile, if you explode in anger, or if you crumble under pressure, she's going to feel unsafe, because when a woman feels unsafe, she has 2 reactions. She either disconnects and shuts down, or she rebels and starts to challenge you in ways you haven't experienced before. That rebellion you hate, that nagging, often that is just her anxiety manifesting because she doesn't trust the walls of the fortress you've built for her. During the dating phase, you need to test this, because if you are calm, consistent, and protective, and she still acts in a chaotic or defensive manner, that could be a warning light. It means that her lack of safety is more internal. Maybe it's trauma based, and you can't really fix that. But if you see her soften and relax when you take charge, you may have found a woman who can be receptive to your lead. So you have the leadership dynamic and you've built the safety, but even if the chemistry is perfect, the relationship will still implode if you ignore the blueprint. This brings us to core values. This is where the love is blind myth causes the most damage. Imagine you and a business partner decide to build a skyscraper. You both have the capital and you both have the energy for it, but he wants to build it out of wood in the forest and you want to build it out of steel in the city. It doesn't matter how much you like each other, that project is doomed because the blueprints don't match. Attractiveness is just the marketing on the outside of the building. But values, on the other hand, they're the foundation. I'm talking about the non-negotiables, like desire for children, financial discipline, worldview, and morality and ethics. I have seen men who value health and discipline date women who value hedonism and party, thinking, she'll change, she just needs more time, and everything will be fine. But she won't just change. I have seen conservative men date liberals thinking, we just won't talk about politics. But guess what? You will talk about politics, and it will affect how you raise your kids, how you spend your money, and who you associate with. You need to assess her values early on, not when you've already invested in her. You don't do this by handing her a questionnaire, of course. You do it in an indirect way, which opens her up by asking open-ended questions. What's your view on that? Or how do you see your life in 10 years? What's your relationship with your father like? You have to listen to her answers, of course, without judgment. Let her reveal what she's really up to. If her blueprint is a party check and yours is a fortress, do not try to renovate her. Just walk away, because misaligned values are not a challenge to overcome. This is a myth. They are just a guarantee of future divorce. Now, this final point is the filter that separates the boys from the men, because it's the ability to look at a good deal and realize it's actually a liability. In business, we have a term called due diligence. Before you acquire a company, you look at its history, its debts, and its previous management. You must view a potential partner through the lens of investment, lifetime potential, and mileage. Not all women are worthy of the same level of investment. That sounds harsh, but it is reality. Some women are fun for a season, but they are not built for a lifetime. You need to look at her track record. What is her history with past relationships? Is there a pattern of dishonesty? Is there a history of promiscuity or self-degrading behavior? Think of yourself as a venture capitalist. You have a limited amount of time, emotional energy, and resources. That is your capital. You are looking for a blue chip investment, so to speak, something stable with a history of steady growth and reliability. A woman with high mileage, and I'm talking about emotional baggage, trauma, and a chaotic past, is a volatile startup. It's high risk, and when we are talking about the mother of your children, you do not want extreme volatility because it's hard to contain and it will drive you insane. You want ultimately stability. You have to look for indicators of strong personal values. Does she have long-term friendships that shows loyalty? Is she close with her family? Capacity for bonding? Does she have interests beyond social media and clubbing? Something that basically represents depth. If you decide to ignore the stage just because she's beautiful, you are making a bad investment, and the market, reality, will eventually correct that mistake at your expense. And gentlemen, your choice of partner is the ceiling of your success. A toxic woman will drain your bank account and your spirit, but a high-value woman will be the peace in your home that allows you to conquer the world outside. You must be the man who leads, and you must create a safe environment for her to prosper as well. You must align the values, and you must have the discipline to evaluate the investment before you sign the contract. If you've if you found this video valuable and want to learn more about how to basically assess a woman's character, more specifically her stability and emotional state, then click this video where I break down exactly how to test her emotional stability. See you there.